Hello and welcome to The Telescope. Every week we'll bring you a fresh insight from the biggest car market in the world. Why are we on another static review of the Leapmotor B10? Because this time we get to see the interior. But let me just say this out front. I don't like going to a particular event just to see a car's interior, to the point I didn't even promise them anything. If this car's interior is box standard, nothing special, I won't even produce this video. But luckily, it is quite special on the passenger seat. We start here on the passenger seat because this area in front of the front passenger is the most interesting part of this car's interior. Leapmotor has made these official mounting points that you can put your iPad, you can put a small table and do your homework, do video conferencing with your laptop, and do makeup. You can put your favorite models, your car models, cartoon models. There's a quite extreme example next door that it may not be my cup of tea, it may not be your cup of tea, but I'm going to tell you, there's quite a few people in Asia, in China, and in Southeast Asia who are quite into that kind of thing. So you can do whatever you want in this area, but the obvious question becomes, where is the front passenger airbag? Leapmotor has obviously thought about that. The airbag fires from this direction, so it fires over this section. As long as you keep your models and your tables and your whatever you want to put here below this line, then you're fine. It's not a safety concern. We've reviewed this car's bigger brother, the C10, on Telescope before, and I've said Leapmotor use a lot of leather, especially for an unbelievable price point. But if they can make this interior more sophisticated, add more layers, that would be very welcome. They did exactly that with this. Now this has different leather in two different contrasting tones. You have just the right amount of pop for these air conditioning vents, for the wireless charging pads. This is now a fairly sophisticated interior and absolutely a match, very near the class-leading Geely Galaxy E5 in this regard. And I've said in the Geely Galaxy E5 review that car, a particular highlight on the interior, that they've paid attention, made a conscious effort on the way these physical button feedbacks, the car window closing and opening sounds. This also matches the E5 even in these kind of small little details. An advantage of the Galaxy E5 back in August last year was that car's infotainment is unusually good for its class. This B10, just about 8 months later, matches the E5 in just about every category. The overall UI polishedness, the responsiveness, just the availability of different kinds of apps, and just overall functionality, connection with your phone, different kinds of phone mirroring. This has all of them. This is a very generous, typically Chinese rear cabin. I'm 5'11", you can see the legroom is huge. And there's a glass roof here. I'm very welcome to see there's a physical sunblinder here. There are some quite smart touches. It's not unusual to see a storage compartment here, but they've thought about where do you put your tissues. Like if you brake hard, if you just leave it on the seats, the tissues could be rolling around all over the place. So they've made a cutout here so you can use your paper like this. I mean, how smart is that? One tiny detail average customers may not notice if you're just glancing this car in a showroom is that this car for some reason doesn't have any kind of lighting here on the rear cabin. There's no lighting here at the handle. Because there's a glass roof, there's no lighting here at the center, which means if you park this car in an underground car park and you want to fetch your bags here on the rear cabin, it's pitch black darkness and you need to open the LED flashlights on your phone. It's a strange decision, and I believe Leapmotor will add a light back in here in the next model year update. Boot is a major highlight of this car. It's 420 litres with the floor at its default position and over 500 litres if you drop the floor down like this. This is significantly bigger than the MG ES5. MG ES5 with the floor down is only 410 litres, so this is a much bigger boot. This will be very much appreciated in Europe. But here at the back, there's a major shame. I mentioned in this car's exterior preview that this car doesn't have a rear wiper, and I've checked with Leapmotor that they have no plan to put a rear wiper here in place. This is a huge shame because this rear screen is huge. The rear visibility from the center mirror is fantastic. And I don't know why they can get away with not having a rear wiper in China, although I mention it in every two-box hatchback SUV review. If it doesn't have a rear wiper, I will call it out, but it's not that important for the Chinese car market. But this in Europe could be a deal breaker. And this being a top spec has a rear-facing camera, so for the top spec, they could just transmit this camera signal onto the central screen as sort of a backup digital center mirror. But I think in the next model year, particularly for overseas market, Leapmotor has to add a rear wiper back in. Now this car being the top spec has all the cameras and LiDARs. This is not rare to see, but in previous Leapmotor models, the C10 and the C11, they're only available on the top spec, and it's very rare to see an actual customer car on the road with LiDAR, but slightly different with this car because Leapmotor this time will offer this smart assisted driving suite on the smaller range version. This car will have two range options starting with 510 kilometers and there's a 600 kilometers range topping version. Here at the central screen, we can see the assisted driving part. Apart from self-parking, it also has the commute mode, which means if you show the system your daily commute from your home to your office, it can memorize the route and drive itself even in urban busy traffic. For this particular price range, this is very welcome. The only rival that has this is the Baojun Yunhai, which has the DJI assisted driving kit. This is on a different Qualcomm platform. How does this stack up against its competition? This beats the obvious rival, the BYD Atto3 or the Yuan Plus in every way. It's quite strange actually, Yuan Plus is still selling that well. It has not been the class-leading benchmark for quite some time, but there you can see the brand momentum of BYD, that even if one particular model may not be that good, because the brand is so strong, people still buy that car. But if you just look at these two cars on merit, the B10 beats it in every category. In the materials we're given, this car is also benchmarking against the Geely Galaxy E5, and I've compared this car with the Galaxy E5 in several criteria, but I don't think this car could quite match the E5 simply because of size. This car is half a class smaller than the E5. While Leapmotor claims this car's space, particularly the rear legroom, is only 15 millimeters smaller than the Geely Galaxy E5, and I believe them. You've seen the rear legroom really is that good. But legroom is not everything. For example, when I'm sitting here, how close my head is to the A-pillar, how the upper cabin closes in on my head, and how close my head is to the visor, and how boxed in this cabin feels. This still feels about half a class smaller than the E5. So in terms of sheer showroom appeal, when you're putting these two cars side by side, I still think the E5 has the edge. But this B10 might be cheaper. In Europe, the B10 has another very obvious rival, and that's the MG ES5. We've reviewed that car before. In China, this B10 beats the MG ES5 in every category. It's bigger, it's also rear motor, rear wheel drive. It has a better infotainment, better interior, more sophisticated interior, better materials. In China, this wins hands down. But in Europe, it may not be that clear-cut because the size advantage of this B10 compared to the ES5 may not be a plus point. The ES5 is a very sweet spot size. Plus, the ES5 has a lot more physical buttons than the B10 on the interior. This B10 on the center console, on the center IP, has zero physical buttons. This is acceptable in China, but in Europe, I don't really think so. Plus, I think in terms of brand familiarity, the MG still has an edge over Leapmotor and the ES5 has a rear wiper. I cannot overemphasize how important that is to the European market. Leapmotor, please add this back in. I feel tired saying this time and time again. Now, Leapmotor being Leapmotor, of course, will have a killer price. If this car wants to beat the Galaxy E5 that hard, let's start with that. The major selling spec of the E5 now starts at roughly 120,000 RMB. This car's bigger brother, the Leapmotor C10, final transaction price after discount is 123,000 RMB. This car being smaller and on a cheaper platform, I'm expecting this to start with roughly 105,000 RMB. If this car starts under 100,000 RMB, 998,000, this will destroy the market and take over the segment. For Europe, this B10 is even more interesting because in China, this car is BEV only, electric only. But because of the current tariff situation from Europe, this in Europe will have a range extender option. So it becomes a PHEV. So it doesn't have to pay the tariff. Now with a PHEV, this might become even cheaper because you use much less battery. Battery is quite expensive. This in Europe might be starting under 27,000 euros. So what do you think? I will avoid from recommending this car until I've driven it because this car has a more basic 3-link independent rear suspension. It's not the proper 5-link independent suspension that the MG4, MG5 and the ID3 has. This car is being tuned by Stellantis, but still I have reservations about this car's dynamic performance. Let's wait until the media test drive. That is all from the Telescope today. If you enjoyed this video, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.